Hey, good afternoon, guys. I'm Michael Siglico, youth pastor at Grand Prairie Alliance Church. This is our Parenting Today class. Normally, these classes are done on a Sunday morning in person, where you guys get to kind of sit with us around round tables, interact, engage in conversations, but obviously we're not able to do that. So we're doing this live. We do have our chat stream going, and we invite you to ask questions through there. We'll be checking it kind of live, and if I'm able to address any of those questions kind of on the spot, we'll do that. Or there's also a possibility where we could do a follow-up video, or even just answer them online through text as well. So feel free to engage and comment, interact in any way that you would like to. Our topic today is technology. Now, originally I wanted this class to be kind of focused around managing technology. Technology is everywhere, especially in the lives of our youth. So we as parents, what is our role, and even how do we help our youth manage these devices? They can be really controlling. But in light of our situation, I think a lot of us have come to realize that there's actually a lot of value and benefit in the use of our technology to connect with people, especially in times when face-to-face connection is really difficult or advised against. So this isn't just about how we manage technology. This course is actually going to be on how can we leverage it. And not just in the connection sense either, but what are some other benefits that can come from the use of our devices. So here's the layout of what we're going to be looking at. One, what are the negative impacts of technology? It's important for us to realize, yes, there are negative impacts. So we're just going to look at some of the facts and some of the biggest ways that technology can hinder us. Then we're going to move on, okay, what do we do to manage it? How can we minimize the impact, the negative impact that technology is having? Then moving in, how can we leverage it? Our God is all about redemption. We take things that are thrown at us and turn them into something valuable and fruitful. That is the work that God does. And I think that can be done through our technology as well. So what value? And then we're going to close with what benefits can we expect from our technology? Can we expect benefits? And hopefully we'll be able to answer, how do we get there? So again, we're coming at this from a biblical perspective. On one hand, it's a challenge because obviously when the Bible was written, technology wasn't a thing. At least technology in the way that we have it and use it today. So bear with me. My goal for this class is to give you practical tools, tips, and ideas for technology use in our household. Coming from a biblical perspective, I do have some scripture that I'll be giving you throughout this as well for us to focus on and reflect and see the value in it there. But won't necessarily be taking the time to explain the theology behind it. There's only a limited amount of time, and I'm choosing the practical view with the understanding that this is all coming back from a biblical, a Christian perspective. All right, let's jump into it. I'll be giving you some resources as well. The majority of my research comes from a place called Common Sense Media, commonsensemedia.org. Incredible resource. They have a lot of up-to-date research, but it's not just the facts. They also give you, practical tools as well as, okay, in light of these facts, how are we supposed to live and function? Another place, Pew Research, PEW Research, that a lot of really good information and facts there. Stats Canada has decent facts. And then again, access.org is filled with tons of resources that dive into specific topics. We're kind of doing an overview. Access kind of gives you the tools on, hey, I don't really understand Snapchat. Well, here's a document explaining Snapchat, how my youth are using it, and how I as a parent should be aware of what's going on. And we'll post these later. I'll reference them again throughout. All right, negative impacts of technology. It's unavoidable. Technology is everywhere. We can't escape it, but we can learn how to manage it. So that's our goal. 1 Corinthians 6:12 says, Paul is writing to the church in Corinth, and he's saying, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be dominated by anything. this phrase, all things are lawful, kind of became a mantra or a justification even that the church in Corinth would use. So like, oh, Christ set us free. We're free from anything. And, that means there's no restrictions. We're justified in doing whatever we want. Paul is saying, whoa, okay, that's what you guys are saying, but you're skewing that. And yes, we have been freed from the law. We are freed from some restrictions, such as dietary restrictions and limited worship restrictions. But we still have these kingdom values and principles to live by. And in light of that, we need to recognize that these things you're pursuing are not to be dominant over our lives. And same thing in technology. So everything in moderation. Is technology inherently evil? No, it's not. Are we prone to using it for evil? A lot of the time, yeah, we are. So everything in moderation. How much can we manage in a healthy perspective? Okay, here are the unfortunate facts. Teens ranging from the ages of 12 to 18, on average of 7 hours and 22 minutes on their devices on screen time for leisure. Now, if we add schoolwork and other things such as ebooks into that, it'll bump that up over 9 hours, like quite a bit over 9 hours. That's a very large number. That's more time we spend sleeping. This is more time than a full-time job. We're looking at screens, we're looking at devices, and we'd be fooled to think that it doesn't have an impact on us. Now, the younger grades drop a little bit less than that. From the ages of 8 to 12, it's an average of 4 hours and 45 minutes for leisure screen time use, and 6 hours and 50 minutes, so almost 7 hours total screen time. Still a large number. And then if you get younger than 8 years old, it drops down significantly to about an hour a day. Those are the facts. Here's another one. Teenagers, ages 12 to 18, pick up their phones on average 150 times a day. That's a big number. How different are you and I, though? Well, the stats say that you and I, as in adults, pick up their phones 96 times a day. Also a big number. That's just phones. That doesn't include other devices, other screen time. 44% of teenagers admit that they check for messages on their phone as soon as they wake up. And another 28% say that, most of the time they would as well. So that's over 70% of youth. First thing they do on an average day is check their devices. And finally, 73% of teens admit to using their phones after midnight more than once a week. So they're up late on these devices, doing a whole variety of things. So what's the impact that all of this has? We're going to look at four different components, 4 different ways that technology is impacting our daily lives. First, we're going to look at spiritual. Then we're going to go down to physical, then social, and finally, a mental. So first, the spiritual impact that technology is having. And, by spiritual, I definitely don't mean like this is a matter of salvation. I don't even mean in the sense that we are exposing ourselves to evil spirits or the demonic. Although there are ways that can be done through technology, that's not the most common use. By spiritual, I'm mostly talking about our worldview. What's our perspective on life? What's that dominant voice in our life? What's our driving force? What's our outlook? There's so many different voices coming at us every day, and they all have an impact on how we view the world. And as believers, is that dominant voice going to remain as Christ's voice? Romans 12:2, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. We're talking about content. When we're using our devices, we're flooded with content that's coming at us, and it takes a lot of discernment to filter out, okay, what's good, what's bad, is there a middle ground, is any of this neutral? It's having an impact on us. So should we be concerned with what we're being exposed to. What games we're playing, what social media sites we're on, what else might come up on our screen. Ultimately, yeah, there is cause for concern because there is a lot of harmful, negative things that come our way. We could spend the rest of the day talking about the negative things that come up in front of us. I'm just going to address some of the few major ones, and then feel free to comment in the sections if there's anything specific you'd like to be addressed either now or at a later time. There's also a lot of gray area in here, which I'll do my best to address. But I think we can all agree one of the largest negative impacts that these devices, these screens, can have on us is access to pornography. We're no longer living in an age where we have to be really discreet and secretive to go out and seek pornography. It's not even the case where it's just, in the privacy of our bedroom, we're on our phones and we're able to access it. It's actually worse than that. And in a lot of the cases, it's not an individual going to pursue this content. A lot of times it comes to the individual without them asking for it. So what do we do in the midst of that? This is definitely a cause for concern. The average age of exposure in our North American culture is 8 years old. By the age of 8, the majority of our children will have seen some type of pornographic image. Unfortunately, this is almost to the point where it's inescapable. We can do our best to delay this age of exposure, and I think that's absolutely important to invest our time in being really wise on how we are using our devices, and we'll address that in a second. But we need to recognize that, we can't delay this forever, and in the event that it does come, or when it comes, how are we going to respond? And our best response is to engage in this conversation before it happens, to be able to walk alongside our children so that when something like that does come up on their screen, they turn to us as parents and are willing to have a conversation about it and say, hey, mom or dad, this came up on the screen. I don't really know where it came from, how it happened, or what it means. But they're turning to you instead of feeling the shame that pornography so often carries and hiding it and burying it in secrecy. Pornography loves secrecy. And, when that comes up, they're more prone to hide it again and again. And that's when an addiction, that's when unhealthy habits, that's when it starts to control our minds and our impulses. So being willing to have those conversations really early on, like 8 is really early on, but they're necessary. Keeping in mind that they're already experiencing shame. We as parents don't need to bring that to them. Rather, how can we help them discern what is good and what is evil? So that's just the one kind of black and white area that we see. Yeah, we can agree. This is a terrible use of screen time. There's other areas that are a lot more gray. Violence in video games is a very common and even a heated discussion on, is there research to prove that playing violent video games will change the behavior of a youth or a child to be more aggressive, to become angrier, or even become violent themselves? Some research will say, yes, a high increase of exposure can lead to some of those behavioral issues, where other research says it's actually indifferent and doesn't have a role to play. I guess in my opinion, research aside, take it or leave it, is, I think that a high exposure of these types of games does have an impact on us. In the behavioral sense, maybe not, but I think there's a bit of a numbness that comes over us when we play these games, becoming accustomed, losing our sense of compassion and empathy, I think is one way we might see an impact through an overuse of highly violent or graphic video games. But really, it can also desensitize us from real life events and start, disassociate us from reality? And when we hear a news story of an actual tragic event, do we view it the same in light as a video game that's distant from reality? It can create this numbness in us, more so change in our worldview, change in our perspective, change in our outlook of life than a change in behavior. But then again, how we view the world often dictates how we behave as well. So, do violent video games make a difference? Possibly, likely in some sense. But again, everything in moderation. And we'll be addressing kind of how can we gauge that later on yet. There's so many different voices on our screens, and really the key here is discernment. How do we know what is right from what is wrong? Even influencers are the big thing now, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, wherever it might be, people sharing their own outlooks on life. And it's really hard for us to go in and say, yes, this individual has beneficial things to say, or this individual has unhelpful things to say, because that can change from one topic to another. So we almost have to address it case by case and say, you know what, they actually bring a really good perspective to this issue. But when they're talking about this issue, I actually don't agree with any of what they're saying right now. But to say that, they have a bad opinion on one subject, so none of what they say is helpful, is one approach, but probably not the most helpful approach. So we do have to kind of break this down case by case, video by video, post by post, and analyze it and say, is there truth here or not? And again, this comes from our own worldview, our own Christian background that determines, okay, what is good, what is useful, and what is false. Music is in the same sense. Music is everywhere. Sometimes it's related to screen time, sometimes not, but in the same sense of content, of having an influence on our worldview. Same as all these other influencers, as all these other videos and posts that we're engaging with, they all have a message that they're trying to send. And it's up to us to be able to filter it and determine, is this valuable for us to be absorbing? Is this content beneficial for us, or is it harmful? All right. Again, we're just kind of focusing on the negatives parts right now, which is a bit of a downer. I recognize that. We are coming back to say, okay, how can we actually change this? That's the kind of the spiritual component to it. This is the physical side of things. We can become so stimulated through what comes up on our screens. Everything is so fast-paced, so eye-grabbing. Lights, sounds, it all attracts us and stimulates our mind. So much so that the engagement we get from our screens can make the rest of the world feel really dull, really lame. It doesn't move at the same pace that we're used to. We become impatient and become irritable when we're kind of just living in the regular pace of regular life, absent from our screens. It has these physical impacts on us. It creates a restlessness in us. Another component is, the more time we spend on screens actually has an impact on the quality and the amount of time that we're getting to sleep. Sleep deprivation is already a large issue in our culture and in our youth culture that leads to a number of other negative factors, such as mental health. And our screens are not helping that in any sense. The blue light on our screens suppresses melatonin. Melatonin is what makes us feel drowsy and sleepy and ready for bed. So if we're using our devices, if we have any screen time at all, we're being exposed to this blue light that tells our bodies like, whoa, hey, it's actually simulating daytime, and that must mean it's not time to go to sleep. It could be 10, 11, 12, 3 in the morning, and as long as we're looking at our screens, that light sends a message to our brain that says, it's actually not nighttime yet. So our bodies are not ready to sleep. as we're using our devices, as we're engaging in, whether we're messaging people, whether we're taking in videos, whether we're posting our own content, all of that stimulates our mind, keeps our mind engaged and active. And again, it's hard to unwind from that. We actually need time to distance ourselves from that to get ready for bed, for a healthy night's sleep. And then the other side of this is because we're spending so much time on our devices, we're missing out on other things of daily activity, such as being physically active, getting fresh air. All of these components that contribute to a healthy night's sleep are being taken away from our screen time. I'll say this now and come back to it later, that really in order to cancel these negative effects on our sleep patterns, we should be shutting down our screens an hour before bed. And I'll come back and talk about that more later as well. The final physical component that screen time has is there's such an attraction to it because when we engage, especially on social media, and people like our stuff, comment on our stuff, react positively to it, it makes us feel really good. And that's just not a false sense of feeling good. It's not just the emotion. There's actually a chemical reaction that happens physically inside of us. This chemical is called dopamine. And when someone likes our stuff, that chemical gets released, and it feels really good for a brief moment. This is the same chemical that gets released in our bodies through drinking, through smoking, through gambling, through all these other highly addictive things in our lives. The same chemical reaction is happening within us. So the more time we spend on social media is actually contributing to a potential addictive behavior. It creates physical impulses in us, even to the point, you could probably ask your youth, and a lot of them have experienced this before. You might have experienced this before. I confess that I have, that you feel your leg vibrate, and you reach down, check your phone, and there's no messages, there's no alerts, there's nothing. But you were positive and confident that your phone just went off. That's a physical impulse. That is a reaction. That is our body saying, whoa, hey, I haven't felt this in a while. It's about time to feel it again, even though it's not there. The social component. Social media is a large amount of how we spend our screen time, of what we use our technology and our devices for. Ironically, all of these social connection points can actually make us feel more isolated. Unless, of course, we've been feeling way more connected now, being in literal physical isolation and having the opportunity to connect online. This isn't really the normal we function in, though. Through social media, we have a tendency to develop pseudo-relationships. That is fake relationships. Relationships that don't have any real meaning or depth, but put on the front that these are people we connect with. It's a false sense of connection. Another component is, we feel a lot of social pressure. And we know this, the stuff that we post online, the pictures we put, aren't always the most accurate representations of our day-to-day lives. Rather, they become the highlight reel. Our social media pages become the best of the best. And often even the best moments in our days or our weeks that we're presenting have also been edited, cropped, masked in some way. Filters are put on them to make them look better than reality. And we do this because we want people to have the illusion that we have everything together, that our lives are going well. Or we see someone else's life appears to be going really well, and you know what, we want that for ourselves. So that's what we present. One of the issues with that is, though, everything we put up, we want people to like it. But if we're putting a fake picture of ourselves and people like it, we know that they're not liking our true selves. And that has really detrimental social impacts on us. Because these people we think are our friends, either we believe that they're not going to like who we really are, so we put up a front and confirm it because they're liking someone who's not actually us. And through that, we're distancing these relationships further. Another social component is bullying. Gone are the days when bullies lived in the playground. Social bullying is almost inescapable because we're so connected to these online platforms that if someone wants to come after us, they can do it any time of day. And it's really easy to rally people together because when it's just a name on the screen, it's really easy to desensitize a human. It's really easy to attack someone and degrade them when you're not looking at them face to face. This concept of social bullying or online bullying is really prevalent and almost to the point. I forget the stats off the top of my head, but it's almost half. Almost half of our youth have experienced this online bullying at one point or another. And finally, there's this element of FOMO, F-O-M-O, or the fear of missing out. It's a catchy phrase. We make light of this phrase often, but it's actually a pretty serious thing in the eyes of our youth, the fear of missing out. Part of the reason why we're so connected to these devices, why we can't let them go for long periods of time, is because we don't want to miss out on what's happening. Now, again, there's two sides to this coin. One is we want to stay on top of what's in. We want to be involved and included of the things that are going on. And that's not helpful for us. We can never play catch up forever with all of these people that we're following. We just don't have that kind of time. And we can see it takes a large amount of time for us to try and keep tabs on all of the updates from all of these friends, all of our followers. But yet we don't want to miss anything, so we keep doing it. The other detrimental part of FOMO is when we see our friends post pictures with our other friends and we're not a part of it. Were we not invited? Are we missing out on a good time? Why didn't they call me? Why didn't they send me a message? Did I say something wrong? Going back through your text feed, was it something in here? Fear of missing out. If someone else is having a good time without you, there must be a reason why you're not a part of it. And that's a really hard mental game for our youth to be playing. But it comes up on our social feeds so often that how can we not? How can we not question why everyone else appears to be having a good time and we're not? All of these things contribute to the level of anxiety that our youth, that our children are experiencing in this day and age. Especially things like FOMO, especially things like having pseudo-relationships where there's no real depth or connection to them, but we believe there is. Which brings us to the last point. Mental health. When surveyed, teens who are left without their phones, what emotions are they experiencing? The top three list, and this is 56% of our youth fall within these top three categories. 1, they feel upset. 2, they feel lonely. Or 3, and the most prevalent number 1 feeling is anxiety. When a teenager is left without their phone, the number 1 emotion they experience is anxiety. There's a connection that teenagers who spend more time on social media platforms such as Instagram or Facebook, the rate of depression jumps from 13% to 66%. The teens who are using social media in excess, there is a huge jump in the rates of depression. These numbers don't necessarily say that social media causes depression, but there's a correlation between the two, and we know that it's not helping. The number one exhibiting high levels of depressive symptoms increased by 33%. So these are teenagers, people between grades 8 and grade 12, found that depressive symptoms increased by 33% as a whole within 5 years. And the suicide rate, especially for girls, were the higher in this category, increased by 65%. The rate of suicide through depression jumped 65% in just 5 years. And I think it would be foolish for us to say that social media doesn't have a factor in that. Now, another possible outcome for these huge increase in tragic numbers is not only what happens on social media, but again, what are we missing out because we're spending so much time on social media? Things like physical activity, hobbies, face-to-face interactions, healthy, meaningful conversations, all of these contribute as well. Now, it should also be noted that those who spend an excess time on social media and have a high engagement with these other outside activities don't fall into those statistics and numbers. They don't have that same increase in depression or suicide rate. Just to show that a healthy balance goes a really long way. Our devices can be addicting. I think we know that. I think we can recognize that there's a lot of truth in that. This effect of dopamine, this chemical that's released, that makes us feel good temporarily, we can keep pursuing that and keep chasing it, but really it can feel good without being satisfying. And that's where a lot of these negative stats start coming in, is we're pursuing something that will never fulfill us. The final one I'm going to touch on right now, still related in kind of this mental health realm, is the instant gratification. And again, there's a few other points that we could spend a really long time talking about in terms of mental health, but we don't want to spend too much time on the negative stuff because there are positives that come from this. But this concept of instant gratification, everything we want can come to us in an instant. We can be entertained in a second. We can connect with people immediately. Everything we want comes to us at the snap of a finger or just by reaching into our pockets and looking it up. This has limitations, and it can seem to be true for almost all elements of our life, especially in the teenage years, except for two factors stand out more than the rest. One, deep, meaningful relationships. Those don't come in an instant. Those don't come in a second. That takes years sometimes to develop a strong, healthy relationship. But yet we have this expectation that it can happen instantly because so many other things we experience happen at the snap of a finger. So that, when we don't have that strong relationship, or when those relationships start to fumble after a week, it confuses us. And we don't know where to turn, we don't know where to look, because we haven't developed the skills or the tools for longevity and developing healthy relationships. The other factor is job satisfaction. I think we all long to do something meaningful, do something with purpose in this life. But in order to have a job that provides that satisfaction, again, that doesn't happen on day one when you show up to work. That happens over months or years of developing and investing in a career. So when we expect that everything is handed to us in a second, through this instant gratification that we have become so accustomed to through our devices, we don't know how to manage that because we've never had to manage that before. And what we have learned is that one of the greatest coping mechanisms is turning back to our social media because it gives us that instant hit of feeling good. Okay, we're done on that negativity. All of that to say is, managing our technology is really important. This is the why to the question. Why do we need to manage our technology? Because everything we just talked about is having such a negative impact on our youth. Now we're going to move forward and talking about the what. We don't really know what these social platforms are. We're going to look at that. Then we're going to look at, okay, how much? How much is too much? How much time do we spend? And when? When should we be using our devices? And then finally, okay, but seriously, how do we make change in the lives of our families? So, 1, what are our youth even doing? What are they looking at? What platforms are they using? If there's something specific you want me to touch on, go ahead, comment. I'm going to go over, I think I've got 4. Yeah, the 4 most common ones that you'll find our youth using. And just briefly, what is it? It doesn't mean you have to become experts on these, but it's helpful for us to understand what our youth are looking at. Number 1, this is a bonus one, it's not Facebook. Number 1 reason why our youth are not on Facebook is because you are on Facebook. Sorry to say it, but they kind of left once they realized that all of their parents and aunts and uncles and grandparents started using it. Then they're like, you know what, we're gonna just move on towards something else. So there's actually very few of our youth that are still left actively engaging on Facebook. Instead, they moved to Instagram. Now, Instagram is kind of the leader of this picture-perfect view. People started posting pictures of what foods they're eating and the hikes that they're going on and all that they're doing with their friends. And you can edit right on Instagram and make it look better than reality. Instagram also created stories. An Instagram story is something you can post that lasts for 24 hours and then it's gone. This younger generation doesn't really like having their pictures permanently on the internet, although they still are. But through these stories, you can say, hey, this is what my day looks like, and then it's gone. Snapchat is another big one. Snapchat is kind of like texting, but instead of words, use pictures. Take a picture of yourself, where you are, what you're doing, send it to your friends, be like, hey guys, what's up? One of the main issues with Snapchat is there's zero accountability. There's time limits that you can set on how long your picture will last, but after 8 seconds, that picture's gone forever. So there's really no way to track or stay on top of what pictures are being sent back and forth, which just causes a bit of a gray area because there's no accountability to that. Snapchat also rewards you for sending pictures to the same person day after day. So it kind of feeds into this constant, always need to be on it. It's called a streak. We talk about, we've hit a streak of 100. That means that 2 people have sent pictures back and forth 100 days in a row. That's a small number, by the way. They have streaks that go way longer than that. The newest one to the game, TikTok. And a lot of us are really confused by TikTok. It seems really obscure. It seems really useless. It seems really random. And it kind of is. But it's also the social platform that has been downloaded the most times in the past year. This is rapidly becoming our most popular platform for our youth to be on. So what is it? If you open it and look at the videos, there's weird dances, there's people doing, crazy things. It's all for entertainment purposes. The whole reason for TikTok is comedy. People scroll through it to get a laugh. That's really all they're looking for. It's new, and in a lot of ways it is different. It's only for videos, and your videos can't be longer than a minute. Actually, a lot of them are just 15 seconds. So like, what can you possibly accomplish in 15 seconds? A surprising amount, actually. There's also a built-in video editor for TikTok, which is a neat feature that a lot of our youth like. You can edit and add features and effects and sounds and text and all of this to our videos all in one spot. Really user-friendly. Here's one of the most significant things that's different is in Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, you all choose, these are the people I'm following. These are the ones that, I connect with regularly. These are my friends. And that's the stuff that you see. You see stuff from your friends, from the people that you follow. TikTok has taken this, and they do have a follower section as well, where you can kind of toggle back and forth, but there's also this main feed. And that's where it'll bring you automatically. And it's people from anywhere in the world. Their content is coming up on kind of the second you open the app, it's just right there. Sounds way worse than it is. It sounds like this is a recipe for disaster, and it could be, because how do we control what content we're seeing? Well, it's actually really easy to control that on TikTok, because unlike the other apps where you're stuck to following certain people, on TikTok it's more about following concepts. The more you engage with a post, the more you like something or comment on it, it's going to keep sending you not necessarily stuff from that same person, but that same type of content. So for example, if you like a devotional, you can go ahead and like one of my devotionals on TikTok. That means, one, they're going to see more of my stuff, which is good, but even better than that, they're going to see a lot of other devotionals from other people as well. And that type of stuff is going to start filling their feed. So it really caters to the user. We're going to talk more about TikTok later. Next, YouTube is the final big one. Always been popular. YouTube is for posting longer videos. People do tutorials. People have started doing a lot more videos about video games, which is really attractive to our youth today. Not much more to say about that for YouTube, just to say, it's still one of the most popular platforms that our youth are using. I'd just like to take a second to say, why is GPAC Youth on pretty much all of these social media? Currently, either Lauren or I, actually both of us, we are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok labeled as GPAC Youth. By doing this, we're not promoting your youth to say, hey, go make all these profiles on all these accounts so that you can follow us. Rather, we're recognizing that your youth are already here, and there's a lot of content that they are absorbing on these sites, and we want to be part of that. We want to be able to show up on their scroll feed. We want to be able to kind of interrupt the regular rhythms of what these platforms are offering and provide a bit of light in that context. So that's a lot of what we've been doing in the midst of this isolation when we haven't been able to meet physically. We're doing our best to show up on these platforms where your youth are already showing up. Okay, let's move into the question of how much. This is a really complicated question, actually. How do we determine how much screen time is a healthy, manageable, appropriate amount of screen time? It's actually better, rather than counting, the minutes per day, if we step back a little bit and look at it kind of more of a weekly perspective. We're going to look at instituting balance in our life. And what does balance look like? And then how can we fit screen time in the midst of that balance? So let's think of screen time, video games, technology, our devices, all of this as a diet. We know that if we eat well-balanced meals, follow Canada's food guide, our bodies are going to function well. On the flip, we know that if we eat junk food and candy, we're going to get sick. And the same thing happens with our media consumption. The more unhelpful content that we're taking in, the worse it's going to affect us. That also means that, yeah, there is actually beneficial content that we can be taking in and using on these platforms. And, well, let's break it down a little bit. And, three very untechnical terms, still in this food analogy. We can have protein, we can have popcorn, and we can have poison. Three things. Obviously, protein, that's the good stuff. That's what gets our bodies energy, that's what fuels us, and helps us be able to function how we were created to function. Popcorn is, really it's just kind of fun. It doesn't have much of an effect on us. You can add salt and butter, and that makes it worse. But popcorn is kind of the middle ground. It doesn't help us, no, but is it that bad? Depends how much you eat, I guess. And then poison, which is obviously, that stuff is actually really harmful for us. And the more we watch that, we notice a lot of negative effects. I'm going to add a fourth category. Those three I stole from super smart dude named Sid Coop. He's a youth pastor guru. I'm going to add pixie sticks into the mix. I don't know if you guys are familiar with pixie sticks or remember them. That's kind of like what I grew up as a kid. It's literally just a straw of sugar. I place that definitely below popcorn, but it's a little bit above poison. And, poison is kind of that black and white area of, yeah, pornography is poison, absolutely. That will ruin us, for sure. But what about some of this other stuff? What about some of this gray area? If I eat a pixie stick, what's it going to do to me? Well, another question we should ask is, what else have I eaten that day? If it's 3 o'clock and this is the first thing that I'm going to eat is this pixie stick, that's going to wreck my body. But, if we've had 3 well-balanced meals and you add 1 pixie stick into that, our body can actually filter that out relatively effectively. You're still going to feel it. Still not good for you. We still have to brush our teeth. But it's manageable. Does that make sense? On the flip side, you could have 3 well-balanced meals and then eat 30 pixie sticks, and that'll also wreck you. So flipping this in, back to technology, time. How are we using our time? If, we spend 5 hours doing something really productive and then have, half an hour of something that's harmful content, something that, we would not agree with. That's going to have a different impact than if we did 5 hours of harmful content and 30 minutes of good content. So to give a flat number of, it's okay to spend 2 hours on your devices for leisure. Well, you could be spending 2 hours really poorly, or there are 2 hours that you could spend somewhat productively on our technology, and giving it time doesn't give us healthy habits. So we're not focusing on time, we're focusing on balance. So this food analogy is just one component. That's talking about the content itself. What content are we taking in? What's protein, what's popcorn, what's pixie sticks, what's poison? The other factors are, of course, are we being physically active? Because that's going to have a huge effect on, how much screen time is going to impact us or not. Are we being socially engaged? Are we being creative? Are we developing other hobbies? Again, if we only have a couple hours of free time a day and we're devoting all of it to our screens, to our devices, even if we're choosing healthier content to be taking in, well, it's still not great for us if we're neglecting these other elements that create a physically, emotionally, and spiritually healthy being. So we need balance in our lives. We need balance in the big picture scale. of, okay, are we getting physical activity? Are we getting social engagement? Are we being creative? And then screen time would fall underneath leisure time. And then there's a balance within that screen time. Are we looking at things that are positive for us, that are in line with our Christian worldview? Excuse me. Or are these, just kind of neutral? We're just looking for a few laughs. That's all right. Or, some of these things are leading down to dark trails. Balance. How much can we tolerate? Time of day. So another factor of figuring out how much is when. If we kind of establish a rhythm of, okay, when are we going to be using our technology, then the time element is just going to fall into place because we'll get there. Okay, time of day. Creating a daily routine. I would say this, as we looked at kind of in the physical side of things, technology impacts our sleep, yes. Therefore, I would say we shouldn't be using our screens an hour before bed. There's some pretty strong evidence that that makes a difference for us. So, time of day, whatever your bedtime is, shut down an hour before that. What about in the morning? When we started this class, we heard the majority of our youth check their phones first thing in the morning. I would say, that's probably not healthy for us to be doing, is engaging in a digital world before our real world. So set a time limit on that. And you know what? That could be, first you have to shower, then you can check. Or first, once you're done breakfast, then you can check. Or, once we're on the school bus to school, obviously not in effect right now, but later, then, it's okay if you check your phone when you're on the way to school. How we start our day sets a really strong rhythm for how that day is going to turn out. I noticed this a lot personally in my college years, very directly with checking my social media. If I wake up in the morning and check my social media, I found that I'm way more prone and tempted to check it throughout the day. As I'm trying to write papers, as I'm studying, it's way more distracting than if I say, no, I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to move onwards and be productive with my time and then check. It makes a huge difference, not just in my productivity, but in my desire to want to check my phone or not. So how we start our day matters. School restrictions. Now, obviously, when our kids are at school, follow the guidelines of what your teachers are saying, of what your school has put in place. But right now, we're all doing school at home. And this is new territory for us. And there's a lot of grace that we can give in this time because we're on a huge learning curve. But we still need to be aware of how we're using our technology. Multitasking isn't as effective as we are led on to believe that it is. A lot of our youth take pride in their ability to multitask, that they can, check their social media, they can text friends, they can be watching YouTube while they're doing their schoolwork. That's not the case. We are far, far more effective when we focus on one task at a time. So it actually adds kind of this false sense of productivity when we're multitasking, saying that, I can handle all of this at once. You might be able to handle it, but all of this extra time it's taking us to finish our assignments and our tasks cuts out from our free time, from our time for hobbies, from our time from actually being able to focus in our relationships, which then again adds to the anxiety and stresses of we don't have time to accomplish everything we want to do in a day. All that to say is, having our devices during school time, probably not the best idea. Now, of course, we need our computers, we need things to do school, especially using like Zoom and all of our online classes. It might be helpful if you're able to create a separation and say, this is my school device. My laptop maybe a tablet. This is what I'm using for school. And then, my phone can be used for my leisure time. And there's a distinct separation between the two so that we're not tempted by one or the other. Or the other factor is, we can just simply turn on our do not disturb. We can change the settings of will we be getting notifications or not, and limit our time that way and say, you know what, time of day matters, but also our responsibilities matter. So we're going to do our school first. We're going to do our homework. And, we can take breaks, absolutely, but it's far more effective if we have that structured in first. So that's kind of a daily sample. Looking at a weekly perspective, there's actually value in taking an evening off from our devices. And just a whole evening set aside to doing anything other than checking our social media, watching YouTube, texting our friends. It keeps us grounded, keeps us connected to reality, helps us experience some of these other things that life has to offer for us as well. Genesis chapter 2 is the creation account. And, Genesis chapter 2 kind of starts with the day of rest, when God created a Sabbath day. God created rhythms for us to function in. And it's important for us to realize that, we are rhythmic beings. And having structure in our days is really valuable. And having a weekly structure is also really valuable for our own health. This is how we were made to function. Establishing a rhythm can be difficult. I think we probably recognize that. And, some of our youth know that they like to have things planned out. They like to follow a calendar and have things set in place, where some of our other youth would far prefer just take things hour by hour. But when we set off into a day without much of a game plan, it's really easy to fill any dull spaces, any quiet spaces in our day with our devices. And not in the helpful sense, in the sense where we're just scrolling away, looking really at nothing at all. We intend to do it for 5 minutes, but then 15 minutes gone by, and then 50 minutes has gone by, and then we realize that, there's really not much time to start the next thing I thought about starting, so I'll just do this for another half hour, and then I guess it'll be supper time. Whereas if we set out with our day of a list or a set of tasks that this is what we want to accomplish, then when it comes to a natural pause point in our day, we can say, I need to move on to this, rather than, what am I supposed to be doing? I'll just check my phone quickly, and now the day's gone. When we look to institute a rhythm of technology in our homes, there's a likelihood we're going to get some pushback from our youth. Especially if we say something like, you're going to be limited to 2 hours of screen time a day. The responses that you'll get will probably be resistant. Things like, that's where all of my friends are. Do you not want me to hang out with my friends? But hey, that's how I relax and unwind. And so I can only watch a movie, and then what am I supposed to do with all this time that I'm spending at home? Another reason why it's not always helpful to give, a time bracket in establishing a balance of our technology, but to look at weighing the factors of how much time compared to other activities are used with our technology. They might also go on and start bartering for your time or for their screen time. For instance, when I was a teenager or younger, or a preteen, I suppose, my mom made me a chart. You could watch, I don't even remember, maybe an hour a day between, computer, which was like the shared family computer, TV, or or video games. Those are kind of the three things that we had. Obviously, we have way more now. That was fairly easy to track because it was fairly simple. I'm either doing one of these three things, track my time, done. When we're checking our phone for 5 minutes, are we going to count that? Are we going to add it to the list? How about this? How come I can call my friends and that doesn't count as screen time, but if I want to FaceTime, I'm literally doing the exact same thing. But now I've lost half of my screen time for the day. They're going to start bartering for time. They'll say it's not fair. And since screens are so pervasive in our day-to-day lives, you know what, there is a lot of gray area, and it is really hard to track a time frame like that. So again, we're looking for balance. One of the benefits that come from this is when we establish a rhythm, it actually releases a lot of that social pressure that we were talking about earlier. So a lot of these expectations to respond to messages immediately, to stay up to date, kind of this fear of missing out on all that's going on around us. If our youth now have the excuse to say, like, hey guys, sorry, Dad said that he's taking my device away at 9, and after that I can't chat with you guys at all, or can't hang out, or whatever they're doing, can't play their games. They now have someone to pin that on. And you know, sometimes us as parents need to be the fall guy. It's actually for the benefit of our youth. And it could be a hard adjustment, to be honest, but over time, you know, they might not ever thank you. But I think you will be able to observe and witness the difference that disconnecting makes in their lives. And it takes that pressure away to say, you know what, this isn't my choice that I'm leaving my friends behind. It's actually my parents who said that I have to. They might phrase it in different ways, but it could come across like that. Okay, how? How do we actually implement these changes? One, keep technology central. Keep it out of our bedrooms, keep it out of privacy, out of secrecy. Keeping it in a central location helps us to, one, stay connected with reality, and two, prevents us from going into some of that darker content that could be found pretty easily. Parental controls. The newer devices that are coming out, the newer updates that are coming, all of them have added more and more parental controls. We can limit things like how much time on a specific app. We can put passcodes on certain apps that we only want them to be using certain times of the day. As parents, we have the ability to control access to these different devices, different features, different apps, times of day, and all of this. And that can be really helpful, especially as we're looking to establish a rhythm of what times can we and what times can we not. It just removes that temptation altogether. A few app suggestions that can help in all of this. It's pretty great. We get to use technology to fight technology. I think actually all of our phones right now have this built in where you can adjust the blue light on their screens so that even in the evening, right now I have mine set from 7 to 7. From 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., the blue light on my phone is shut down. It doesn't give us freedom or excuse to use it before bed because there's still other factors that inhibit our sleep with our devices, but it is one simple way that can help. iPhones have this built in. I'm not sure about Samsung or other Android phones, so you can get an app called Rescue Time. And this will track very specifically how time on our phones are being used. Is it being used on social media? Is it being used on maps? Is it being used on web browsers? Is it being used on YouTube? Is it being used for something creative? Are we on music? Are we on different art apps, drawing features? Are we making notes? Are we texting friends? It'll track it all very specifically. It just gives us an idea of how we are investing our time. Another app is called Forest. Forest will actually reward you for not picking up your phone. On your lock screen, it'll come up with a field that'll start growing trees. And the longer you go without picking up your phone, the larger those trees will grow. And it's kind of like a game of like, how big can you get your forest before you check your phone and it all gets chopped down again. Okay. One of the most practical ways to help create these healthy rhythms, to create this healthy balance or healthy diet of technology in our homes, is to create a family plan. Now, this resource, commonsensemedia.org, where a lot of this information is coming from, has a sample family plan, and I'll look at posting that maybe in the comment section or so later. But it just goes down a checklist of, and this is something you do collectively as a family, of getting each other's inputs, both parents and kids, of what's realistic, what's valuable, gives everyone kind of a voice and opinion in when our tech should be used, what we're allowed to use, and how do we create this balance. With this, it keeps an open conversation. And then kind of we're all working on the same standard, and this includes mom and dad are also part of this family agreement. We can check in with one another. We now have a standard of what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, and it's really easy to work off of that when everyone's on the same page. Okay, this is still kind of all in the realm of damage control, the negative impacts technology is having, and how can we limit that? How can we reduce it? The next section, we're finally going to step into what are the positives that we can be expecting? And this section might feel a lot shorter than what we just dealt with on kind of the managing side of things, but it's important for us to understand, the harmful effects from technology and the negative ways that it can be used. All builds the foundation for launching into how can we redeem this and what are the positives that might come from it. So again, technology isn't inherently evil. We are prone to use it for things that are unproductive, unbeneficial, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be, and there can be another side to the coin. So I'm going to briefly go over kind of 5 tips. How can we leverage technology in our homes? And then, again, briefly after that, what are the benefits that we can expect to receive? Number 1, don't do it alone. A lot of the negative things that come from technology is when they happen in quiet places, in secrecy, and that's when it's really easy to get going down a dark trail, or makes it hard for us to step out of something that's damaging to us. So don't do it alone. When we're alone, that's when a lot of the mind games happen. And it's easy for us to cycle down on ourselves. So whether it's something as simple as, connecting with a friend to play the same game together, is actually a lot more beneficial than playing that same game by ourselves. We might not fully understand all that our kids are doing with with their technology on their social platforms, on all these devices that they have. And we might not even want to. We're probably not going to enjoy it the same way they do. But in this time of isolation, especially, when it's really hard to connect with other people, it's kind of time for mom and dad to step up to the plate and say, what, I'll be willing to try this out with you. Make your youth the experts. I can only teach so much in this session. They're really the experts in their own worlds. So ask them, what are you spending most of your time on? What do you find engaging about that? Or what entices you to go there? And let them teach you. That creates huge common ground for ongoing conversations and connection. It's a great way to connect with our youth, even if it puts us out of our comfort zone. Number 2, plan out your days. I already touched on this in the rhythms that are really healthy for us to establish in creating a balance of technology. And the big thing that we're looking at in these rhythms is to kind of take back those quiet spaces in our day. How often are we, waiting at the doctor's office and we just pull out our phones? We're in an elevator, pull out our phones. We're waiting for a microwave to finish warming up our food, so we pull out our phones. We're even sitting on the toilet and we pull out our phones. We have no quiet times in our days anymore. It might seem insignificant, but these quiet times are times for us to process, to just kind of soak in the world that we're in, times for us to pray, times for us to stay grounded with reality. And if we don't make an intentional move to not use our devices, if we don't intentionally structure that as part of our day, we're going to lose it. Our devices are going to rob that from us. So planning out our days is really significant. Number 3, use our technologies to strengthen creativity. Creativity happens when we're bored, when there's nothing else to do. That's when our imagination kicks in. But because our devices are so attractive and appealing and can so easily, instantly gratify us, we don't feel that same sense of boredom anymore. There's a large part of our culture that's losing this sense of creativity. But then there's the other side of it where all of these platforms are telling us to create stuff, to be creative. And to be honest, TikTok is one of those that is demanding us to be creative in the videos that we are producing. It might look weird or silly, and they are, but it's creative, and this is what our youth have come up with. So we have opportunity to partner with them in that. A few ideas of how we could leverage this is, 1, create a video for TikTok with your youth, if they're already on TikTok. If not, then don't worry about it. Some of the most popular TikToks are actually intergenerational ones that include parents or even grandparents are the most popular. Your youth will love it. You might feel ridiculous, that's okay. Another one, what if we created kind of a live action Fortnite battle using Nerf guns, teaching them how to create rubber band guns? They're still invested in these platforms, these games that they're really drawn to, but now taking that same concept and removing the screen. Doing a photography challenge. For the next picture that they post, go around the house and say, whoever can take the best non-edited picture, post both of them. Don't say who took what picture because you're going to lose that way. That's just a popularity contest. Get their friends to vote on whose picture is the best. YouTube is filled with tutorials. Watch a video on how to learn something new. Are you getting the concept here? What we're doing is taking what they're already invested in and redefining it, implementing those same principles without the screen. We're strengthening, what we're aiming for is strengthening these creative muscles and doing it in a way where you spend more time off screen than on the screen. Because all of these are still involved in what they would regularly be doing. But now, 1, we're doing it together, and 2, it's no longer the screens that are dominating our time. We just had a really good question come in. I'm going to pause before we move into our last 2 points here. The question is, a lot of the kids right now who are not in school want to video chat with each other to keep connected. And they want privacy to do it. So value, they want to stay connected. That's great. That's something that we can leverage, something that we can encourage, because relational connection is really valuable. This question of privacy, really common. Oh, there's 2 pages. Is it a bad idea? So the rest of the question, is it a bad idea to let them do it in their own space alone, like their room or whatever else it may be? So are we going to let the youth determine where to have these video chats? Again, this can be a difficult one to give an absolute yes or no to. A lot of it is coming from your context. Is there a level of trust built between you and your youth that, I know their values and I know who they are chatting with, and I can trust them to have their space? Has that trust been broken in the past? Trust is something that needs to be built and established. So to answer the question, the safest answer is always do it in an open space. It just removes any temptation there, right? And the other element is, they can do it in their space, but have an open door policy. Maybe it's their bedroom they want to be doing this in. Yeah, that's fine. Mom, dad are going to go about their day doing their regular stuff that they're doing, but the door's open and, they might walk past every now and then. And they'll be able to see, possibly hear what's going on. And if there's a lot of resistance, this is opportunity for conversation. Why is it so important for them to have such a private conversation? Sometimes they just feel more comfortable being able to have chat with their friends. And, it might be an aspect of they don't want their other siblings nearby. But if there's a lot of resistance on, no, I can't let mom and dad hear what I'm going to be talking about, then that's an issue that can be addressed. And it really demands an ongoing conversation. And this is where, creating a family media plan can be really helpful, because then we can look and say, look, we've agreed on this. These are the rules we're going to follow. And it's never too late to establish that. We could sit down tonight and say, open table, what do we think is healthy and appropriate for our family to be doing? I hope I was able to answer that question. And again, if you want to probe a little deeper, we can definitely do that. I can also do a follow-up response after this main session too. Okay, back into our 5 top points. We just finished 3, strengthening creativity, and 4, don't be afraid to have fun. One of the biggest reasons why our kids are spending so much time on their devices, they just want to laugh. They just want to have a good time. They just want to step out from the stresses that come with the demands of schoolwork or sports or finding jobs or applying to colleges. They just want to laugh. And that's valuable. Laughter is good for our soul. Doesn't matter how old you are. Laughter is healthy. If we go back and think about the diet of, is this protein, popcorn, poison, what we're laughing at, what our sense of humor can kind of sway that a lot, but laughter is above popcorn, I would say. And it's healthy for us to be able to laugh with our children. Laughter creates trust. Laughter creates common ground. Laughter creates shared experiences. So whether this comes from, you're going to try creating a TikTok video with your youth, they're going to laugh. They're not laughing at you. You might make an ignorant comment about, the world, the social, digital world that they're living in, and they might chuckle. But if it's something that they're bringing up again and looking back to, that means they're valuing the time with you more than the time on their screens. Shared laughter does a wonderful thing. And we can easily step into that with our devices and just simply learning what our youth are doing. Number 5, we need to model it. We as parents, as leaders of the homes, as the one who established these rhythms and guidelines, we need to demonstrate it. We need to show our youth this is a healthy balance between media time, work time, family time. And when I'm on my devices, we have to be vulnerable and open and say, this is what I'm looking at. These are the news articles I'm reading. These are, some of the people that I'm following. These are the YouTube videos that I'm interested in. And being willing to engage in some of these critical conversations about our own media consumption. There's a term, a media mentor. And the parental role fits the perfect media mentor and is someone who can show and demonstrate our youth what a healthy and proper use of technology is. And it's proven that someone who has a media mentor, someone who is open about how they're using their devices and critically engaging with conversations on it, those youth are far less likely to engage in unhealthy habits. So one, it really starts with us. If we want to see change in our youth, we have to show them the value of living a balanced life. And if we do, and we are getting real close to the end, I know it's been a long session, benefits will result. If we're able to leverage technology, and these are just 5 ways, but I think there are 5 productive ways that we can leverage it, it'll go a long way. And you know what? Right now, when our whole worlds are kind of dumped upside down, there's a lot of grace in how we're spending our time because we're all trying to learn something new here. But because we are kind of in this new pace of life, it's also a really natural way for us to create new habits. And the new habits that we develop now will last and stick with us once our world goes back to its working order. So these habits of wanting to spend time connecting with our friends and connecting through video conversations, chat groups, messages, and actually having conversations rather than simply playing a game together, I think those habits will follow through as well. One of the benefits that we'll expect to see as we establish a rhythm and healthy balance of media consumption, of screen time, is if we're functioning with a restricted use of time, and restricted as in, we're not going to use our devices while we have other chores, responsibilities, schoolwork, hour before bed, first thing in the morning. That cuts out a lot of our day when we're allowed to use our devices. So when it comes to the time that we finally get to pick them up, we're going to be really intentional with how we spend that time. It's not going to be mindless scrolling and just absorbing whatever might come our way. We're going to be focused and invested in the things that we actually care about checking in on. That's one way. Let's return to our 4 ways that technology is damaging us and see how that might be redeemed as we implement healthy balances. So again, those 4 ways are spiritually, physically, socially, and mentally at the end. The spiritual benefit, probably the number 1 that we can see is heightened skills of discernment. Discernment is a mark of spiritual maturity. As we're growing in our faith, we have to be able to distinguish what is good and what is wicked, what is right, what is wrong. And media is the most common way that we're going to be able to practice that. So as we're open conversations, as we have these dialogues with our youth and as they have it with us, we have a chance to teach them this discernment. And that's really valuable to shape our worldview. We've also taken back these quiet pauses in our day If we structure our days out well and are intentional with when we're using our devices, we get to take back those pauses, those simple breaks where it's just a breath of fresh air, a time where we stay grounded, connected with reality in this world the way that God created it to be, recognizing our position in this world. And we'll be able to see we can prioritize our content intake. All of these voices, we're able to filter them, and filter them to the point where faith, kingdom values, and the voice of Christ himself remain the audible ones. I think we'll be able to see that happening. Physically, we can remain masters of our impulses. As the more we manage and leverage technology, we develop self-control and good time behavior management skills. We also understand the benefits of a healthy, balanced lifestyle, and we regain some sleep that we've been losing, which is far better. Socially, really the excessive use of our devices speaks to an underlying desire that our youth want to connect socially. That's the core desire. That's how we're created. We want to be in community. We want to have social connection. So we can take that, and I think what we're experiencing right now, this is going to naturally happen. Because the only way we're able to stay connected with our friends is through digital means. Zoom chats, messages, and the like. And I think this will carry forward with us. But again, as we learn to manage our media content, this is going to stand to fulfill this original desire. As we prioritize our time on our devices and actually invest our time where we want to be investing our time and not just aimlessly, then you know what, yeah, we are able to connect with like-minded people who share our values, people who share our passions, people who share our interests. And it also alleviates a lot of that social pressure because we're not scrolling through the late hours of the night because, you know what, we recognize we can't actually keep up with everyone's lives. That pressure of FOMO, fear of missing out, becomes alleviated. And I think we'll also quickly discover that people who we have the strongest online connection with are the people that we've had the strongest face-to-face connection with. I think we're going to come to this realization that, you know what, in order to actually have healthy relationships, there needs to be an element outside of our digital worlds. And we're going to start pursuing those. And finally, mentally. I've always saved the mental health component for the end because it's really true that all of these other factors have significant roles in our mental health. And it's true digitally as well. So as we stay grounded and connected to reality and discover how to balance these previous three factors, the mental health component is also going to increase as a result of that. A few other things, you know what, we can recognize when we start playing these mind games with ourselves. As we're growing in our balance and in our self-awareness of how we're using our technology and how it's impacting us, then we'll recognize, you know, when we're moving into unhealthy spaces and when we start spiraling down. We'll also recognize that, you know, we have pre-established relationships with people that we can talk to and connect with when this happens. Also, removing the secrecy of our device usage just brings into light, it makes it a lot more difficult for us to enter into these dark paths. I think we'll be able to let go of our dependency on social media, on this temporary relief that it brings us, because we're going to learn that there's other healthier coping mechanisms that are involved when we live a healthy, balanced lifestyle. Finally, Proverbs 11:3 says that the integrity of the upright guides them. Integrity essentially means that we're the same person no matter what context we're placed in. I think the values and benefits of leveraging technology is that we'll be able to create our character. We'll be able to develop who we really are outside of the digital world. And then when we enter into that, we are that same person. That these digital worlds don't change who we are. Because in these healthy, balanced lifestyles, we've established healthy connections elsewhere. We'll be able to stand firm in the worldview that we are functioning out of. We'll be able to live lives of integrity. This is a lot to take in. I get it. This is a large and new world that we are navigating. And, we could do endless research on the impacts that technology is having on our youth. But I think if we really broke it down, since none of us has that extra time to be researching right now, the best thing we can do is this. 1, demonstrate a healthy, balanced lifestyle for our children. And 2, take time to invest in their lives. Remember, they're the experts of their lives. Step into their worlds. Ask them about it. The most valuable thing we can do for them is to engage in open, honest, valuable conversations with our youth and how they are spending their time. Engage in things that they feel are important to them. That's how we show that they're valued. We're living in this digital age beyond our control. There's only so much we can do to limit it, to delay it, to manage it. But our role as parents is not simply to minimize the negative effects that this world might have on our children. No, our role as parents is to step into the lives of our children and show them how they can thrive in the midst of everything that might come our way. And this alone can be done through the strength that God gives us. So allow me to pray for you guys as we continue in this journey, and let's continue this conversation. Feel free to send in any more questions you would like. Let me pray, and then we will sign off. Heavenly Father, first of all, we pray for your help, because there is so much beyond our understanding in this world that we are living in. We pray that wisdom comes from you and you alone. So Lord, would you guide us as we seek to do what is most helpful and valuable as we raise our children. Lord, this digital age has so many factors, and there's so much negativity that we can focus on. And Lord, we pray for protection over that. But more than that, we pray for redemption. We pray that you would help us to be able to turn the tables and be able to create real value and positivity, to create really healthy and balanced lifestyles. And that through this, our children will grow in maturity and their discernment and establish a strong sense in their self-security in their worldview focused around you. We pray all of this by the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you guys for taking the time